I'm sitting here with Craig Roseveare. Is that how you pronounce it?
Roseveare.
Roseveare. He's a former police officer, and you have recently wrote a book about your personal safety and security here in South Africa. Can you tell me why you decided to write this book?
Absolutely, Jonas. The book I started writing in 2016, and it was due to the prolific farm attacks and farm murders in and around the district that I live and the country, South Africa in general. And it was due to the increase in the level of violence associated with the attacks. And then a personal friend of mine was also involved. He was also attacked, shot through the jaw. It's it's all in the book that I wrote, which is titled "Your Security in South Africa." And I just felt that it wasn't enough just to try and talk to people. I felt compelled to get the message through to as many South Africans as possible, because one of the things that we are going through in South Africa is a form of violence that is so intense that you've got rape, torture, murder, and the South African people. I think a lot of the South African people are not aware, although if they're aware, they're not prepared. So the message in my book goes to awareness and preparedness in a country that is where the crime rates and the murder rates are so high that you can compare them to a country at war.
Yeah, and you of course bring in some experience as a police officer, and can you tell me your experience working in the police, dealing with this kind of crime? Why aren't the police corps here in South Africa effective enough to deal with this crime wave that is facing the white Afrikaners?
Well, yes, I do come from a police background. I was a member of Riot Unit 8, Reaction Unit, in the early 1990s. We've seen considerable change over the years. I think a lot of it could be to do with the resources, the training of the South African Police Force members, the support that they're getting as well from higher up, and that results in a situation where the innocent citizens of South Africa, and in particular the farmers, are basically left unprotected. And for them to rely on the authorities, being the police force and other military authorities that we have in South Africa, they'd be living under a sort of false sense of security.
Yeah, because that was one thing that struck me when I read your book, is that your advice in the routine, if you're feeling danger at your farm, that you should first call your neighbor, and then second you should call your security company, and only third and last you should call the police.
Unfortunately, that has become a reality. South Africa has more private security companies than any other country in the world, and that in itself is an indication of the effectiveness, unfortunately, of our authorities. And one looks at the commitment of the authorities, but I believe that so much more needs to be done to get the authorities back to the level that they should be, and especially when it comes to the level of crime, the level of serious and violent crime that is plaguing South Africa. There have been, I've heard, I don't want to go into a political situation, but there have been outcries, many outcries towards, support to the farmers, especially on this time thing, because the farmers are living in secluded areas, and it's very difficult for them. So the reaction time of the authorities as well is not where it should be. There is no doubt about that.
So what can be done? What is the practical examples that you lift up in your book?
The practical examples is that I use a quote that people need to repeat, which is, if it is to be, it's up to me. And basically, that means that the farmers themselves have now got to look at very, very seriously. They've got to look at, from the level of awareness to the level of preparedness, they've got to now look at looking after themselves. Because by the time the authorities, being the police, and even all those good things which are very, very necessary, being the security companies, and a lot of the things that will help them in a situation like that, being alarm systems, etc. By the time the reaction comes, it's too late.
Yeah.
Those situations, be it the police and even security companies, cannot permanently look after the farmer or the innocent person in South Africa. The brazenness of the criminal is now such that they are coming in and they are not scared. So the farmer has to prepare himself that he has got to take action.
So the farmer will be its own bodyguard.
Exactly. Yes, the farmer or innocent person, or now has to use systems where, if you look at the different mental phases, and it starts from a change of the mental change towards the whole aspect, is that you've got different mental phases that you need to look at. For example, in the book, it's quoted under farm attacks, actually, that you've got a green zone where you're not likely to be attacked. For example, where we're sitting now, we're not likely to be attacked, so we're probably in a green zone. You've got a yellow zone where you could possibly be attacked. And then the farmer needs to be in what we call the orange zone, when you're expecting an attack. So expect the unexpected. Then obviously your red zone is when you are under attack.
Yeah.
So the farmer needs to live in a constant situation of orange zone, where he's expecting an attack at any time. And in the book, that then goes further to explain, to guide a person as to what to do.
But how do you manage the stress level of being in this yellow zone on a permanent basis?
It has to be a change of mindset, which the book guides a person through. It has to be a change of mindset, because if one does not have that change of mindset, yes, it is a stress level, and it can be seen by some people as being paranoid. But there's another phrase that I have: a little paranoia leads to a longer life.
Yeah.
And we the innocent people of South Africa, let ourselves down by burying our heads in the sand and pretending that this is not going to happen, and yet it's happening all over the place. So that fear that you are living in, yes, it's very real, and it's not understood by a lot of people. A lot of people choose to ignore it, and it's not natural, it's not normal. That civilized people should be living in a situation like this. But I'll go back to something that I quote all the time: it's reality.
Yeah.
And if one doesn't rise to that occasion, change one's mindset, then people are highly likely to become victims of serious and violent crime in South Africa at the moment.
Because it's two aspects that you basically brings up. One of the hard structure of having a fence and having the alarm system in point, and the other is the way you move and think and regard this daily routine of. Can you just talk us through how like a Monday morning, you as a family father, what are you thinking when you go up, and what you need to do?
Well, we talk about routine, we talk about the different structures, the different security plans that you have to put in place, because as I call the book Your Security in South Africa, and that's referring to each and every person. For example, now, the typical South African, this being urban or rural, would wake up in the morning, and you would wake up to what I call a cell gate, which is a gate that cordons off your sleeping quarters from the rest of your house. And I call it a cell gate because you're almost imprisoning yourself, but protecting yourself behind this cell gate, so that if criminals do breach from any other part of your house, and this has got to be well planned, and that's why I refer to awareness and preparedness. If you're aware, it means your mindset has changed, it has to be. The preparedness is now putting these things in place, and as you said, the routine after that, okay, and we can talk about routine, but let's rather talk about habit. Needs to come into action. There is that you've now got a cell gate which segregates, cuts off your sleeping quarters. You've now got to go through that cell gate, but it's a process every time you go through, because you don't know whether your house has been breached, and if you let yourself down and you don't lock that gate, you are then allowing the criminal the opportunity to come through. And a lot of people let themselves down by not practicing these things. And in a country like South Africa, you have to do this. Otherwise, as I said, you're going to become a victim. And the other thing is, from there, you need to check that there have been no breaches in the house. In this process, I advise South African people, innocent South Africans, I advise them to be armed. I advise them to buy a licensed firearm, to go for combat training, to carry certain other weapons, which are all mentioned in my book, to have inside dogs. For example, I've got 2 pit bull inside dogs that sleep in my bedroom, and a lot of people are going to think this is paranoid, but in a country like South Africa, this is not paranoid. This is very, very real. And then before you actually exit your house, for example, you've now got another security gate before you open the door, and the procedures that I explain in detail as step by step as to what to do, and making sure that your lighting systems are correct, your alarm systems are correct, that you don't have too much cover, in other words foliage, in your garden that criminals can hide behind. The other one is that how have you parked your car the night before for when you're going to leave in the morning? Because a lot of the situations in South Africa, a lot of the attacks or hijackings which lead to horrific outcomes happen when you are reversing out of your driveway. If you change your routine or habit, routine is a dangerous word because criminals pick up on routines. They pick up on routines. If your car is facing outwards, you don't have that stop. The other one too is that you need to expect the criminal to breach as you are going through your gate. So there are so many different steps to follow, which is all explained in the book.
Yeah, because then you have some certain weak points in your daily habits. For instance, opening the gate and someone is waiting for you.
Absolutely correct, Jonas. Absolutely correct. In that situation, you need. We now go back to that orange mental state, or orange zone I referred to, is that expect the unexpected. In a country like South Africa, you have to expect the unexpected. Otherwise, you're letting yourself down. The statistics, they speak for themselves. I don't have to mention figures. They speak for themselves.
You're saying that it's dangerous to go from habit to routine because you could be scheduled by the criminals. How do you actually avoid that in practical life, especially when it comes to these daily things that turn into a routine after a week or two?
You're so true. We are all brought up to follow routines. It's part of life. It's part of life. But unfortunately, the criminal will target certain areas, and that is one of the weaknesses. Is that a criminal can sit there and watch your routine. Can note the word routine for days on end. That you're leaving at a certain time. That you tend to leave that gate open, or that door open, or that window open. So what I'm saying is that with the change of mindset, is that we need to, it's a serious case of introspection and looking at your security, referring to each and every single individual South African, innocent South African. Look at your security. Use this book that I've written as a guide, because this book will help guide people to be able to see whether they are following certain steps that can help them.
Yeah, because
So-
you bring up the roles of the entire family within this book.
Yes, I do. I do. I do. The family needs to be very involved in the book. It's no use, for example, just the husband being involved. He does all the security checks, and I refer as well, especially in the chapter 11, to do with farm attack security, is that the roles of women have actually had to change in South Africa. Will need to change.
Yeah.
And they need to be more involved in the entire security element, family element as well, and act as in a form of teamwork, husband and wife, and children, to a certain level, depending on the age of the children, the maturity of the children. And I refer to that as that, it's your security plan. Each and every person there are different dynamics involved in their security plan. Some of them are very similar, but if you take the information, if a person takes information out of the book and they use that to prepare their security plan, that is a huge help. And I go as far as saying that if they follow the steps in this book, it will reduce their chances by 80% or more of falling victim to serious or violent crime.
So it's a preventive measure based on the behavior of the subject, which would be the farmer.
Exactly, it is. It's a preventative measure. And
in Sweden, when we talk about crime and talking about victims, preventive measures usually are framed as victim blaming, that you blame the victim for not necessarily needs to think about its security because it's something that should be certain. For instance, a girl doesn't get raped because the way she's dressed, she gets raped because of the rapist, and it's the rapist that's doing wrong. What comment do you have to the liberals that will watch this interview that have that kind of mindset?
The criminal needs to fear authority.
Yeah, because my experience from South Africa is that if a black man enters your house, you're not allowed to maybe take those measurements of security as you wish, because the judge or the jury would say that maybe he just was hungry, wanted to see what was into the fridge, or maybe he just wanted your cell phone, or maybe he wanted some money. It wasn't necessary to shoot him down.
Well, my book is written for all South Africans, all innocent South Africans. But we use an example of black man, white man, Indian man, coloured man, whatever man enters your house. What are they doing? They're breaching the perimeter of your house, firstly. And with the precedents that have been set in South Africa, and with the statistics of not only murders, I mean murder in itself. Let's look at it in the context that I said of serious and violent crime. Is that your rapes, your torture, the murder, etc. Anybody breaching the perimeter of your house, and a person is still going to try and give themselves time to figure out why the person is in the house. And I'll quote from chapter 5 in my book, which was an article that I had copyright consent from a very well-known advocate here in South Africa, where he quotes that there have been situations where people have hesitated in self-defense and they are now dead. So I think that just describes that in a country like South Africa, if you're going to hesitate in a situation where a person has already gone beyond that certain barrier, then you are most likely going to be killed. So in South Africa especially, we need to live with a situation of kill or be killed. There's another quote that I use, that rather be judged by a jury of 12 than be carried by a group of 6, which there are so many precedents that have been set according to the law as well, where people have acted in self-defense. And the procedure is that, yes, a criminal case will be brought against you of either manslaughter or murder. But the chances of you being convicted in a self-defense situation in South Africa and many countries in the world, and we've seen it just recently with a very elderly gentleman in the UK, where he was charged, but he was not convicted because he was acting in self-defense. So for any legal system to take away a person's right for self-defense, and they cannot themselves protect that person, they are then taking away your right to live, your right for survival. So what I'm saying is that if you feel that your life is threatened, then we have to live by that saying. Rather be judged by a jury of 12 than carried by a group of 6. Because, as I said, you're going to land up dead in a country like South Africa.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I must say that what I brought with me the most with Craig's book was the shocking understanding of the daily routines that every South African needs to go through every single day, because it's not comprehensible for a Swedish man or a Swedish family living in a safe society, because we don't need to think in those terms. So thank you for a good eye-opener, and I encourage everyone that want to understand the situation of South Africa to actually buy this book and read it, because it will open your eyes too to the situation that you are living under.
No, thank you very much, Jonas. Thank you for the opportunity to chat to you, and hopefully it does help South Africans and helps people throughout the world, because I also believe that the world in general is still going to see things that see similar things that are going to affect them. So the book will help anybody throughout the world. Yeah.